Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop. We're on the Jaguar fender now. E-type fender. This is the one we were copying to make the aluminum nose. And the owner is waiting for me to finish up all this rust stuff, and I got to get it done. So here we are. We're going to do this tonight. This little patch panel here will show us little patch panel. What happened here was there's inner structure, like a mud guard that goes in here. So in order to attach the mud flap or the mud guard, they've got a little right angle piece that was spot welded on here, and then the water gets in between the spot welds and you get sandwich rust, and it starts pulling on all the spot welds, make these little impressions and stuff, and it's all rotted severely in behind there. So there's a little hole down here, and there's a couple holes here. And the only fix is really to cut this out properly, because there's a lot of heavy rust on the back side. There's a little dimple here where we did the spot weld, but I'm going to take and weld that up solid so I don't have to cut down there. So the first thing you want to do before you start cutting something, especially if this has integrity as far as the shape goes, so you want to find out where you're at. And this doesn't have any accident damage, so I have these gauges, and but these are very easily made by shearing a little strip and then using a shrinker stretcher to make the curve, or just a piece of cardboard. Either way works. So this gauge here, and this was kind of interesting, it's got the thickness of the tape on there right now, but that fits right there, and it fits right there, so that reads this surface. And it's not constant. As you go up the fender, it changes just a little bit. So we're going to use this one. That's pretty close for right here. And then there's a curve going this way, so we want to know what that curve is, and we don't want to affect it after we get it all welded. So here we have this one, and it sits on there pretty good from here to here. There's no air gap or anything. It's sitting really nice. It's rocking further on because this has more curve further up, but in between here, from here to here, that's all I want to be concerned about. So the first order of business is marking where you're going to cut. You can do I did a magic marker line, but I prefer these blue tapes. Now, we want to cut this out nice and precise. We want nice straight lines. So what we can do is, if you're really good with the cutoff wheel, you can cut really nice. But oftentimes when you cut off wheel, you kind of get jammed up, and you might go off a little bit. So a good insurance policy is to cut inboard a little bit from where you want to cut. So we're going to cut inboard like this. And then we can grind and work our way out a little bit. I'm exaggerating here a little bit. I should come a little closer. So we'll use the Harbor Freight little. This is their Chief. I did a review on it. If you look in my library of videos, I did a review on this Chief. It's a really nice tool. Takes a 4-inch cutoff wheel, and we'll cut that out like this. That will do those. But if I use it here, I'll end up cutting a couple little wings here. So I've got a little Dremel tool here with one of these small, and I'll be able to cut that out with that Dremel right there like that. So that's the next thing we'll do, is we'll cut it out. All right, so we're going to cut this out. We'll use the little Dremel first, yeah. That worked really nice. That was the first time I used this one. This is new quick change style. There's that. See how that walks around? That's why if you're trying to do a super accurate line, it's pretty difficult. So we got our piece cut out. You can see that's the back side. It's pretty rusted right in here. We did rusted it with that Rust 911. We dipped these fenders. So all the residual rust is gone. There's a little bit of cake on here. So now we're going to clean this up. You should always wear a shield because these can catch. You start to catch the pot a little bit on the corner. This breaks off, boom, it hits you in the face, it hurts. Might leave a little laceration. Alright, so that looks pretty nice. Now we'll take a file and just clean the burr up and stuff and some sandpaper. And next step is to make a little filler piece there. There's no area change in it, there's no shape, it's just basically a flat piece. And we're going to TIG weld this in. And when we're done, it'll look just like the parent metal. There's no filler, there's no nothing. Just prime it and paint it. That's it. So that's the way restoration should be done if it's high quality restoration. So let me get a file and we'll file that out a little bit. Get a piece of sandpaper. So we sanded this all up nice to get that metal clean. The cleaner your metal, the better the weld. Same as aluminum. This is steel. And then we want to find out what we got here. I believe it's 19 gauge, but we'll mic it up and see what it says. We get the bottom cleaned up nice. It's all rust free because we dipped it. You can see that nice surface. We paint removed it first, then we dipped it in Rust 911 concentrate that we buy. We offer that in our Amazon store if you want to check the Amazon store. The link is on every one of the videos. Alright, so that's all cleaned up pretty good now. And my micrometer, we'll put that in right over here. Gotta make sure we get it in a spot that's flat. Alright. So I put my light on it and it reads 35, so it looks like it's 20 gauge, not 19 gauge. Let's give another reading over here. I'm getting 36 on this flange here. 36. So it's 20 gauge. The fenders on these Jags are 20 gauge. I know on the 120s, 140s, and 150 they are 19 gauge, so they thinned them up a little bit apparently. I didn't do too much E-type work. So now we got to make a little patch panel, and we just got to put a little roll in it. There's no area, there's no compound curve to it. So I'll go get a piece of 20 gauge. We'll put a little roll in it, lay it in there, mark it with a magic marker, and then we'll cut it out, and we'll cut it out a little big and fit it really tight. The tighter we get these joints, the better. Alright, so this is a pretty easy patch panel to make. We just have to bend it with our thumbs here, like that. We'll get that same curve in there. We'll do some more complicated ones after. Actually, this one here needs this ledge cut off. That'll be another one that we'll do a video of. Alright, so we put that up under there like that, and we're going to clamp that in and then mark that with a superfine pen. There we are, all clamped up. Nice little Milwaukee super fine. And I'll mark this top here so we don't get confused. Now we're going to cut that out. So what we'll do is take the blue tape and place the blue tape right on the line here. And I offer this blue tape in my website store, proshaper.com. So I'm going to cut this out with the cordless shears. This is the least expensive version. I think it was about 160 bucks or so. But they don't offer them anymore. Menards had them. But they come from China. I've been looking for a source for them, but I haven't been able to find it yet. So I'm going to cut it a little wide of the line and we'll grind it to the line. Hardly ever use hand shears anymore. They come in handy in a few spots, but most of this is all done with this. I tread over the line a little bit right here. I got into the blue tape, but I will survive. Now I'm going to put a nice clean disc on here so that I get a nice cool cut. If your disc is really dull, it'll create a lot of heat. Now I'm just going to grind this in nicely. And we'll see if that will fit in there. We lost some of our curve when we cut it, so I got to put a little in here. Make sure that fits nice. There we go. Alright, so we'll cut it down a little more. And this is slow, tedious work, but you have to be patient to get the really good results. You have to be precise. This corners are biting a little bit, I think. Okay, so that's going in. Alright, so it might be a touch tall here, so grind that a little more. And that might be it. That looks pretty good. So now we'll take this blue tape off. I'll remove the burr on this. Goes in right there. Now what I'm going to do is get a backup of copper, and I'll put a bigger piece of copper, a copper piece about that big there. It's like 23 thousandths copper, and I'll be able to clamp that, and that'll act as a bridge and a surface that we can clamp this to. And we'll clamp the copper in, then we'll clamp this in, and then we're going to tack alternately all different ways to get it all tacked in. Here's that copper. It's 023 copper, roofing copper. They use it in the valleys of the roofs when they put new shingles on. And any roofing supply place will have copper sheet you can buy. So we're going to clamp that up, and that will make a nice floor for that patch panel. And also, when we're going to leave that right in there when we weld it, that'll give it a back gas condition, which will allow a really super clean weld, because the copper will hold the argon right in there. We're going to use the TIG with argon on this one. On aluminum I used the argon helium mix 50-50, but on steel just pure argon is fine. One of the most important things in welding in sheet metal is being level. So now I'm going to get a couple more clamps and clamp this nice and level. We got a nice sandwich there now, so go get a couple more clamps, clamp it up, and then we can start tacking it in. Alright, so we have it all clamped up nice. It's nice and flush. We're going to put a couple tacks in here. I'll move this clamp over here and tack this side. Probably get 6 or 8 tacks in the middle here, and then we'll go down to the ends. And that one of the most important things is to have this all nice and flush. So I turn the welder on and we'll get going here. So I'm going to use a 035 or 030. Let me just check to make sure. It might be 030. It's measuring 036. So, yes, we got the TIG. We're not going to run the pulse on this, and I've got it set at 40 amps. There's a lot of other settings here, but they really won't be relevant so much on the steel. It's the aluminum where it's really fussy. Any TIG welder you have to play around. I think 40 will do really well with this, because you also have the control of the foot pedal. Alright, so we're all set now. I'm going to put some tacks in here. That's a nice little tack. Now, welding 20 gauge is often better to hold the rod and put your heat right on the rod and drop a ball on, because 20 gauge is very easy to punch a hole through, and you don't want to do that. So let's do another one here. Now, I really don't care about any distortion that happens. I'm not going to blow air on it or anything like that, because I got total mastery of this process. I can heat shrink with a torch. I can heat shrink with a shrinking disc. So no matter what happens here, I'll be able to fix it. But I'm going to keep the shrinking and any distortion at a minimum. Because that copper is under there, these are pretty cold welds. They're just tacks. I don't really care too much about them, because they're going to get all welded in. I touched the tungsten, and I'm going to put a new point on that tungsten. So let me go grind the tungsten quickly here. So we got most of it. Now we just got to get this bottom half here. Let me take that off. Yep, that's lining up beautifully. So get that tacked. Alright, we have it all tacked in now. And what I'm going to do is I'll clean this first with a wire brush so we can look at it really good. So let me get the wire brush. There'll be a rotary wire brush. We'll clean both sides because when we actually weld it, it's better to have it really clean, and the weld will go a lot easier. When you weld over this carbon scale, it tends to not as weld as good as if it was super clean. So let me get that. Alright, so here we go. We're going to clean it up. And now we'll take and just knock these 1, 2, 3 tacks down. Inside they're just barely penetrated, so I don't think I have to clean up the tacks inside. I might give it a quick blast, but here we go. And I'm going to weld just this 1 inch or so right here, and I'll let that cool down, and then maybe I'll come down here and clean these up and then weld that up. Make sure they're all nice and flush, which it looks like they're pretty flush, so that's good. We'll get these two welded up, and then we'll weld this, and then we'll weld that. The reason for that is if you weld the whole thing, you're inducing the distortion from the heat in different axes here. So it'll be much better to just do them one at a time. Take your time. Don't let any distortion enter the picture. If it does, we've got total control over it, but it can take you hours sometimes to straighten stuff up. So it's better to spend a little time going slow. And our goal is a Bondo-free, filler-free repair that will totally disappear after we get it all sanded and everything. And all that will be required will be the primer. So let's weld this up here now. Alright, so before I welded it up, I put some copper behind there, and that'll give the back gas condition, which creates a very super clean weld on the back side. So all the argon will go in, hit that copper, and pool there, and in effect gives you the back gas condition. There we go. So get that all cleaned up, welded up. Now we'll clean up this tacks and weld that in. We scratched the surface. It's all right to scratch it, but we're not digging in at all. We just knocked those tacks down. Now we want to lean this towards me a little bit, like that, and then I can get that a little bit better. So I pulsed the pedal there because this is 20 gauge and you got to be really careful that you don't overheat it and burn a hole through. So pulsing it allows it a few minutes or a few seconds to solidify. So I got those two welds done and there's no appreciable, nothing visible at all as far as distortion goes here. So we'll clean these up now. Now we did get a little bit of distortion right there. Right here it's sunk in just a little bit, so we're going to hammer that out. That means I got to grind the back side too. So we're going to flip her over and grind the back side. Mark can come in close there and see that how beautiful that copper protected weld is. Putting the copper on there, you don't get a granular sugar look like on the back side of your weld. And that'll clean up so nice, it'll be just like there wasn't even a piece put in there. So let's grind that up a little. Well, I've got a little button from the spot weld there. I'm going to knock that down. I'm going to have to weld that. And then there's a little bit of distortion right here that it might have been there before or it came from the weld. I don't know, but we're going to see if we can knock that up a little bit. Use that little corner of the dolly. Yeah. That's a lot better. Now I'll put the low crown part right against it here. That's a lot better. Give it a little more grind right there. Okay, now I'm going to grind these off. Alright, the copper is up tight against the inside surface and you see there's a little gap there. You can actually see the copper there. So that will be all protected by that copper now. So let's weld that up now. Yeah, all welded, and we're trying to achieve a positive on the top, meaning we don't have any craters of any type. So we got a little bit of rod, nice weld. It was all pulsed. It's the exact same thing as a gas weld, except it's more concentrated and more controllable. With that pulse you can bring the heat down to almost nothing and then just boop, boop. Now I can do the machine pulse, but on steel I prefer to do the pedal pulse. So now we're going to clean that up and see what we got, and we'll see what kind of distortion we have. Let that cool down, get it all cleaned up before we weld this one up. Alright, so here's the importance of checking stuff. We put that gauge on there before and it was fitting nicely. Now there's an 1/8 inch gap under here, so this thing is sunk down right there. And this one had a slight rock to it and now it's got a gap right there. And this one was fitting perfect and it has a gap. So this is going to have to come up. So it sunk this flange in a little bit and it looks like we're going to have to bring that up first. But I won't do it right now. I'm going to grind this down and work this and then I'll weld this up. So let me grind that and work that first. try to bring this up a little bit. It's a little better, just a little more right here. Alright, so we're almost back. I'm a little bit more right here. And this isn't perfect yet, but I'm ready to weld that up, but I gotta grind the tacks off first. Alright, there we are, all welded up. Got a nice little bead. That's what we want, is a positive, small, narrow bead with good penetration. So let's clean that up and we'll see what the back side looks like and see what the front side looks like. That is our front side and there's our back side. Look at that beautiful bead. No granulation or what they call sugar at all. Stainless is the worst for doing that sugaring, but steel does it too. Alright, so let's see what happened with our gauge after that weld. We dropped down right again, down to 1/8 inches by putting that in. But we know exactly where we have to go because we gauged it beforehand. So that just shows that importance of knowing where you were and where you have to get back to. All right. So you can see how close it is over here. And we get over here, we got a big gap here now. So that's got to come up. We're going to file it. You dip down, you can actually feel it prominently with your fingers here. It's high right here. So we're going to slap that and bring that up a little bit. I brought it up. No, that didn't bring it up, but I've got the dip out, except for right here. I still need a little bit more. The weld beads are up a little bit. I'm going to knock them down a little more. We'll see if we can get that flange to come out. It's a lot better. It's bending right there, and we don't want it to bend there. That's because it's weakened because of the hole. So we got to bring that down a little. There we go. That's pretty good right there. Just a little bit of light thrown there. That's good. So now what we'll do, see if we can bring a few little low spots up still. Let me get a better file. Alright, so we have our marker on, and we're going to try to find the highs and lows here. It's a pretty fine file. It's not removing any material, so to speak of. It's just indicating where our highs and lows are. And these are all like micro lows. They're down probably about 10/1000ths of an inch or so. So we get our slapper, and we're gonna watch our little footprints here. This is very similar to taking dents out, because essentially right now it's just taking a dent out. It's feeling good. We'll put the marker on there again and get another reading. Now you pick off these spots one at a time. I can just hit right here. You see how that came up. Now I'll try to get that little spot there. Sometimes you can't target it just right. I like the light behind me, but I got a light in front of me, so it's making it a little bit difficult. If I do it with the orbital sander, which I'll do a little bit next, you can see it actually a little better. I was having trouble picking that up. There we go. There we go. Get it over here. Now we got a few little spots right there that we'll have a little fight with probably. They're a little, the material just kind of sunk in a little. So, all right, now let's get these bigger ones up here. Eliminate the big ones and then go after the real small ones after. See what that did. That's feeling really good. Let's see if it came up with the gauge here at all. Nope, it's still way down. So the arrangement probably changed a little bit. We might have to slap it here to slap some of the material up. Let's see. No, still low. All right. Did this get affected again? And that's reading pretty good. So let's go after a few more little spots there. I'm using all the little areas. I use this little sharp one here to go up against this edge so I can bring this edge up. And I'm using these little corners to go after this. Let's try that sharp corner right in that spot down there. Nah, I'm going to use the orbital sander so I can see it better. So, let's see what we got here. Hold that mark for a second. Aha! Look at that, a little persuasion with that dolly on the back side. It reset the arrangement. That was an area value because it's reading pretty good here. But now we're back to where we want to be. And we'll check this one. That's pretty close. It needs a little bit up right there. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to run the shrinking disc on this, and then I'll sand it with the sand it with the 80 paper and the little 2-inch orbital. We put a little marker on there so that the shrinking disc won't gall. Yeah, if you haven't seen a shrinking disc before, go to my library of videos at my YouTube homepage, and I've got a recent shrinking disc video. You can watch that one. What the shrinking disc does, in the process of knocking these lows down, you might inadvertently create a little bit of high by putting the dolly in the wrong spot, and that will just level everything. So I've only got some little micro surface anomalies right now, so we're going to go after those. And this is all fulcrum lever. This is the fulcrum, this is the lever. Alright, so I'm having a hard time seeing it right now, so I'm going to orbital sand it. I want to give it one more little buzz with the here to get any of these high welds still. And then the orbital sander. This is 80 paper, and this will leave a nice little orbital pattern. Alright, so we want to bring, this is the edge of the weld here. This is probably about 5 thousandths of an inch deep or so. So we'll take this edge of the dolly. This is the worst one. Let's see if we can get that one. Just about out. I can use that little edge right there, and that's really powerful because that's like hitting with a ball-peen hammer almost. So you got to be really careful. So first you got to find yourself. I think I got it. Just about out. I'll get this one here. I hit every place but it. I didn't see it too well. This is where the shrinking disc comes in so nicely because that'll bring those little spots down. Now we'll go after this one now. This is the worst one up here now. I can't get that with this, so let me get these here. Okay, now hit it with the shrinking disc again. But I'm going to put the marker on there that protects it. It dropped down a little bit, so we're going to have to hit it with the dolly again on the back side. So we'll let that cool down. Now we'll see if we can bring a couple of these up. I wasn't able to do it with this dolly. I can't get, because of the flange. So I got to find a dolly that will get in there and get that little bit there, and there's another one here, and a couple really small ones. So this was my dolly. It came from the water jet cutter. He was using it as a doorstop, and I made it into a nice little dolly. So it's got a rounded edge there. I think I can use that to just bring this up. All right, now we're going to hit it with the shrinking disc. And it's feeling really nice. There's no perception of anything that was welded in here. There's a little bit of micro stuff. We're going to sand that a little bit. I think most of that will come out with a little light sand. So we'll take this little sander here. There's a couple little dimples. I could chase those out if I wanted to. Let's see where we're at here. Might have gone down again. Yep, it did go down. So we'll hit it again with the dolly. That seemed to be the corrector. That brought it up. And we'll check this one. And down just a little bit. There we go. We'll put the marker on here. I'm not choosing to go after these tiny little divots. Those will fill with primer. And see what the file says now. And we're going to go the long way like this, just to give you the most accurate reading. So we'll have to make some corrections here. Alright, so we'll give it a little more tap in here. I'm going to give it a light shrinking disc rub, and then I'm going to call that a day. That's looking pretty good. I found one spot I don't like. I'm going to chase that up a little bit. There we go. That feels pretty good. We'll give it a 120 sand. So I think I'll call that a day on that one. I've got to cut this out over here. This whole flange is all rotted. That'll get affected probably, so I'm probably going to work into there again. And I just wanted to show you the whole process. If I was super persnickety, I could actually go in there and weld up those little spots there, and the weld will totally disappear. That's the only evidence of it now. I don't want to grind those down, even though they're down only about maybe 5 thousandths or so at the most. That's the edge of the weld that kind of sunk in a little bit. So I think that's it for today. I think we did a pretty nice job. Hope you all learned something. And keep those comments coming. They're great. And please tell all your friends about the Pro Shaper Workshop channel. It's Wray from Charlton, Massachusetts. Thank you.